Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundation of Trust. Robert Sullivan's fingers traced over the resignation letter on his desk at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. After 15 years of watching corporate greed prioritize profits over patient safety, he'd reached his breaking point. The latest cover-up of harmful side effects from their blockbuster antidepressant was the final straw. "You're making a mistake, Rob," Marcus Chun, his research partner, warned. "Think about Diana, about your lifestyle. Teaching won't pay for those art gallery dreams of hers." Rob's stern expression didn't waver. "There's more to life than money, Marcus. I won't be complicit in hiding data that could harm people." He gathered his personal items, ignoring the whispers from colleagues as he strode through the pristine research facility one last time. His broad shoulders remained squared, head high. Robert Sullivan didn't skulk away from difficult decisions. 3 months later, he stood before his first chemistry class at Riverside High School. 30 pairs of teenage eyes stared back at him, with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. "I'm Mr. Sullivan, your new chemistry teacher," he announced, his deep voice commanding attention. "I spent 15 years in pharmaceutical research before choosing to be here. Chemistry isn't just formulas and textbooks. It's the foundation of medicine, technology, and sometimes—" his lips curved slightly, "even murder mysteries." That caught their attention. A girl in the front row, Bethany Andrews according to his seating chart, sat up straighter, her pen poised over her notebook. At home that evening, Diana's reaction was less enthusiastic. She stabbed at her dinner with unnecessary force, her wedding ring catching the light with each aggressive movement. "Another rejection from the gallery investors," she said, her voice tight. "Apparently, my vision is compelling, but they need someone who can contribute more capital to the partnership." She fixed Rob with an accusatory stare. "If you'd stayed at Meridian." "They were falsifying safety data." Rob cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. "I won't compromise my principles for money." "Principles don't pay bills, Robert." Diana's voice rose. "I've spent 10 years teaching finger painting to elementary school kids while dreaming of my own gallery. Now I'm supposed to just give up because you had a crisis of conscience?" Rob pushed back from the table, his chair scraping against the floor. "You knew who I was when you married me, Diana. I don't expect you to understand, but I do expect you to respect my decision." He missed the calculating look that crossed his wife's face as he left the room. The next morning brought James Sullivan to their door, his designer suit and confident smile a stark contrast to Rob's more modest teacher's attire. "Little brother." James embraced Rob heartily. "Heard about the career change. Thought I'd stop by and see how you're holding up." Rob's relationship with his older brother was complicated. James had followed their father into pharmaceutical sales, building a reputation for record-breaking numbers that no one questioned too closely. He'd always been the flashier Sullivan, prone to expensive tastes and risky ventures. "We're managing," Rob replied curtly, leading James to the kitchen where Diana was preparing coffee. "Diana," radiant as ever, James kissed her cheek, his hand lingering on her shoulder a fraction too long. "How's the art world treating you?" Diana's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "On hold, unfortunately. Teaching pays the bills for now." "Such a waste of talent." James shook his head. I have connections in the gallery scene. Maybe we could discuss some options over dinner sometime." Rob's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, 14-year-old Timothy bounded into the kitchen. "Uncle James!" Timothy's face lit up. "Did you bring it?" James produced the latest gaming console from his briefcase with a flourish. "Only the best for my favorite nephew." "James," Rob's voice held a warning. "We talked about expensive gifts. Come on, Rob. Let the kid have some fun. You can't expect him to live like a monk just because you've gone all righteous on us." Catherine Reynolds, who'd stopped by to carpool with Diana to school, witnessed the exchange from the doorway. Her eyes narrowed at the subtle dynamics playing out. James's calculated generosity, Diana's lingering glances, Timothy's obvious hero worship of his uncle. Later that week, Catherine approached Rob in the teacher's lounge at Riverside High. "Rob, have you noticed anything off lately?" she asked carefully, stirring her coffee. What do you mean? Diana seems different since your career change. More secretive. And James has been around the elementary school a lot, supposedly discussing some art program funding. Rob's expression hardened. James's family, Catherine. And Diana's just adjusting to our new situation. Catherine nodded slowly, deciding to keep her suspicions to herself for now. She'd seen the way Diana and James looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. But without proof, speaking up would only make her look jealous or paranoid. The autumn months brought changes to the Sullivan household. Rob threw himself into teaching, finding unexpected satisfaction in mentoring young minds. Bethany Andrews proved particularly promising, staying after class to discuss advanced concepts and recording detailed notes about chemical reactions in her journal. Diana grew more distant, citing evening meetings for a new school art initiative. Timothy spent increasing time with James, who always seemed to appear when Rob was busy with teaching duties or grading papers. "Dad, why can't we go to the lake house with Uncle James this weekend?" Timothy complained one Friday evening. "He says you're too caught up in your new teaching career to have fun anymore." Rob set down his papers, fixing his son with a stern look. "Timothy, expensive trips and gifts aren't what make a family strong. Your uncle needs to learn some boundaries. Mom says you're just jealous of Uncle James's success," Timothy muttered, storming off to his room. The words hit Rob like a physical blow, but he maintained his composure. Robert Sullivan didn't show weakness, even when wounded. Margaret Wilson, the school nurse, noticed Rob's increasing visits to her office that fall. "These dizzy spells are becoming more frequent," she noted, recording his symptoms. "And the nausea. Have you seen a doctor?" "Just stress." Rob dismissed her concerns, though he accepted the water she offered. "New career, family adjustments. It'll pass." Margaret wasn't convinced, but Rob's stoic demeanor discouraged further questioning. She documented everything meticulously: date, time, symptoms. Years of experience had taught her to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. One evening, Rob overheard Diana on the phone in her art studio, her voice pitched low and intimate. "Everything's progressing according to plan," she whispered. "The offshore account is ready. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Yes, I love you too." Rob stood silently in the hallway, his face betraying nothing of the fury building inside him. A lesser man might have confronted her immediately, demanded explanations. But Robert Sullivan had learned patience in his years of research. He would gather evidence, build his case, and when the time came for confrontation, there would be no room for denial or escape. The first semester ended with Rob's reputation at Riverside High firmly established. Students respected his no-nonsense approach and real-world experience. Colleagues admired his principles and dedication. None of them saw the cracks forming in his perfect life, or recognized the calculating predator beneath his professional exterior. Only Catherine Reynolds sensed the gathering storm, watching helplessly as her best friend orchestrated an elaborate betrayal. She'd seen Diana and James together at a restaurant in the next town over, their intimate dinner definitely not about art program funding. But proving their affair would destroy multiple lives: Rob's, Timothy's, possibly her own friendship with Diana. "You're playing a dangerous game," she warned Diana after witnessing another clandestine meeting with James. Diana's expression turned cold. "Mind your own business, Catherine." Rob made his choice when he left Meridian. "James and I are just exploring opportunities." Catherine heard the threat underlying Diana's words. "Someone's going to get hurt. Only if someone starts talking about things that don't concern them," Diana replied sweetly, but her eyes held no warmth. The foundations of trust were crumbling, but Rob Sullivan was far from the broken man his wife and brother assumed him to be. Each dizzy spell, each whispered phone call, each manipulative gift to Timothy, all of it fueled a rage that would eventually consume those who dared to betray him. Chapter 2: Cracks in Paradise. Bethany Andrews first noticed the changes in Mr. Sullivan during their advanced chemistry study sessions. Her detailed journal entries documented more than just chemical reactions. "Mr. Sullivan stumbled while demonstrating molecule modeling today," she wrote. "Third time this week he seemed unsteady. Pupils dilated, skin clammy. Possible low blood pressure or inner ear infection. Bethany's scientific mind cataloged each symptom, unaware she was recording evidence of something far more sinister. Her concern led her to share observations with her parents, who owned Andrew's family pharmacy. "It's probably nothing," her father reassured her. "But keep taking notes. Documentation is crucial in any scientific observation." Meanwhile, Diana Pierce Sullivan was orchestrating a different kind of chemistry. In her elementary school art room, she met with James while students were at recess. "The transfers are almost complete," James murmured, standing too close as he examined her latest paintings. "Another month, and we'll have enough moved offshore. Rob's life insurance policy is ironclad. What about Timothy?" Diana's voice held no maternal warmth. "He's becoming a liability. Yesterday he asked why I spend so much time discussing art funding with his uncle." James's smile was predatory. "Leave Timothy to me. I've been laying the groundwork for months. The new gaming setup I bought him has a chat feature. I've been sharing some carefully crafted concerns about Rob's stability." "The boy worships you," Diana agreed. "Rob's strict principles make it easy to paint him as the villain." Neither noticed Catherine Reynolds passing by the art room door, her steps faltering at the mention of Rob's name. She hesitated, torn between loyalty and mounting suspicion. At home, Timothy's transformation continued. The once close relationship with his father deteriorated as James's influence grew stronger. "Dad's rules are so stupid," Timothy complained to James during one of their gaming sessions. "He wouldn't let me go to that concert just because I didn't finish my chemistry homework." James's voice came smooth through the headset. "Your father's always been rigid, controlling. Remember when he quit Meridian? Didn't care how it affected you or your mom. Some men can't handle other success." The poisonous words seeped into Timothy's teenage mind, fertilizing seeds of resentment already planted by Diana's subtle reinforcement. "Mom says he's holding her back," Timothy confided. "She could be famous if he hadn't ruined everything. Your mother's an artist, Timothy. She needs freedom to flourish. Instead, she's trapped teaching kindergarten art because your father couldn't handle corporate politics." Rob, grading papers in his home office, heard fragments of these conversations through the heating vent. His expression remained neutral, but his grip on his pen tightened until his knuckles whitened. At school, Margaret Wilson's medical log grew longer. Robert Sullivan, 10:15 a.m., severe nausea, vertigo. Refused to go home despite elevated blood pressure. Third visit this week. She shared her concerns with Michael Torres, the ex-military security guard who'd taken a protective interest in Rob. "Something's not right," Margaret insisted. "These symptoms, they're progressive, not random stress reactions." Torres's combat medical training kicked in. "Any pattern to the timing?" "Usually worst in the morning, especially after he's had coffee at home." Margaret consulted her records. "Improves by afternoon unless he eats lunch Diana packs for him." Torres's eyes narrowed. "Document everything. Don't share your suspicions with anyone else yet." Diana's manipulation extended beyond her immediate family. She cultivated sympathy among fellow teachers, sharing carefully edited versions of her struggles. "Rob's become so controlling since leaving Meridian," she confided to a sympathetic audience in the teacher's lounge. "Monitoring my spending, questioning my evening art programs. James has been such a support, helping me maintain my artistic connections." Catherine Reynolds, listening from the corner, noticed how Diana's performance hit all the right notes. The struggling artist, the controlling husband, the supportive brother-in-law stepping in to help. Only Catherine saw through the act, recognizing the calculated destruction of Rob's reputation. The school's holiday art fundraiser became Diana's masterpiece of deception. She coordinated with James to use it as a money laundering operation, inflating art sales and funneling funds through offshore accounts. "Mrs. Sullivan's art program is revolutionary," gushed one wealthy parent, writing a check for an overpriced student painting. "And her brother-in-law's pharmaceutical connections bringing in corporate sponsorship. Simply wonderful." Rob attended the fundraiser, maintaining his composed facade while watching his wife and brother work the room. He noticed the quick touches, the meaningful glances, the synchronized movements of two people intimately familiar with each other's patterns. "Quite a success," he commented to Diana afterward, his tone neutral. James seems very invested in elementary school art. Diana's laugh held a brittle edge. Someone in this family has to support my career, Robert. The direct challenge hung in the air, but Rob merely nodded and walked away. Diana mistook his restraint for weakness, never seeing the predator analyzing her every move. Timothy's behavior grew more erratic as James's influence deepened. His grades slipped, particularly in Rob's chemistry class, but his wardrobe improved with expensive gifts from his uncle. You can't keep buying his affection, Rob confronted James after discovering a new laptop in Timothy's room. James's smile was all teeth. Jealous, little brother? Timothy appreciates someone taking an interest in what he wants, not just what's morally correct. He's my son, James. Back off. Are you sure about that? James's words carried a weight that made Rob's blood run cold, but his expression revealed nothing. Meanwhile, Diana's offshore account grew alongside her desperation. The art program meetings with James became more frequent, their plans more detailed. The toxin is untraceable, James assured her during one rendezvous. Symptoms mirror natural causes. Once Rob's gone, the insurance payout will set us up for life. And Timothy? Once he sees his father's true nature through the evidence we've planted, he'll choose us. Teenagers are remarkably adaptable. Their conspiracy expanded to include David Morrison, a private tutor James hired to help Timothy with chemistry. Morrison's real job was reinforcing their narrative about Rob's instability. Your father's behavior follows a classic pattern, Morrison told Timothy during study sessions. Rigid moral standards often mask deeper issues. These control tactics, restricting your activities, questioning your uncle's generosity, they're concerning. The poison took its toll on Rob's health, but his iron will kept him functioning. He used his pharmaceutical background to research his symptoms privately, gathering data while maintaining his public stoicism. Catherine Reynolds watched the tragedy unfold, paralyzed by conflicting loyalties until she discovered Diana's diary in the art room supply closet. The timing must be perfect. One entry read, James secured the toxin, but we need Timothy fully turned before we finish Rob. The insurance investigation will be thorough. Everything must point to Rob's instability, his obsession with chemical purity. James's connections will handle the evidence. Catherine photographed the pages with trembling hands, knowing she'd found the proof she needed, but terrified of the consequences of coming forward. As winter deepened, the perfectly crafted facade of the Sullivan family developed irreparable cracks. Rob's health deteriorated while his mind remained sharp, cataloging every betrayal. Diana's artistic passion mutated into cold ambition, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for her freedom. James played puppet master, manipulating his nephew while slowly poisoning his brother. And Timothy, caught in the web of adult deception, shifted allegiances without understanding the true stakes of the game. The foundation of trust his father built over 14 years crumbled under the weight of James's gifts and Diana's lies. The stage was set for an explosive revelation that would shatter their perfect life forever. But those plotting Rob Sullivan's demise had fatally underestimated him. They mistook his principles for weakness, his patience for passivity. They never suspected that the man they were slowly poisoning was quietly gathering evidence of his own, preparing for a revenge that would destroy them all. Chapter 3. The Devastating Truth. That Thursday in March began like any other day in the Sullivan household. Rob struggled through his morning routine, fighting waves of nausea that had become his constant companion. His hands shook slightly as he attempted to grade papers, the words swimming before his eyes. Mr. Sullivan, you don't look well, Michael Torres observed during third period. The security guard's military training made him particularly attuned to signs of distress. Let me drive you home. Rob tried to resist, but another wave of dizziness forced him to concede. Just need to rest, he muttered as Torres helped him to the car. The drive home was silent, Torres watching Rob's deteriorating condition with growing concern. Upon arriving, Rob insisted on managing the stairs himself, his pride intact despite his weakness. I'll check your temperature, Torres said, following Rob to the master bedroom. Standard protocol before leaving any sick faculty member alone. Rob lay in his darkened bedroom, the cool sheets offering little comfort against his burning skin. Torres moved quietly in the adjoining bathroom, searching for a thermometer, when voices drifted clearly through the heating vent from the living room below. "Dad, when can we get rid of him?" Timothy's eager voice cut through Rob's fog like a knife. The words hung in the air, heavy with betrayal. James's response was calculated, triumphant. "Soon, the poison is slow-acting. Once he's gone, the insurance money is ours. Then you and Mom can live with me, our real family. Together." Rob's muscles locked, his mind processing the confirmation of his worst suspicions. In the bathroom, Torres's military training kicked in immediately. He pulled out his phone, activated the recording feature, and positioned it near the vent. "The symptoms are progressing exactly as planned," James continued, unaware of his audience above. "Diana's been increasing the dosage in his coffee. A few more weeks, and it'll look like natural causes. The toxicology reports will show nothing unusual. Mom says we have to be patient." Timothy's voice held an unsettling eagerness. "She's already moved most of the money offshore." "Uncle James, you're sure Dad won't figure it out?" James's laugh was cold. "Your father's too principled to suspect his own family. By the time he realizes something's wrong, it'll be too late. The evidence we've planted will point to his mental instability. Everyone knows he's been unstable since leaving Meridian." Rob lay still, each word cementing his resolve. The weakness in his body contrasted sharply with the steel forming in his mind. Torres met his eyes, nodding grimly as he continued recording. The front door opened, announcing Diana's arrival. "Timothy? James? Why are you both home so early?" "Just discussing the future, dear sister-in-law." James's tone dripped with false innocence. "Timothy's excited about our plans." "Lower your voice," Diana hissed. "The neighbors might hear." "Is Robert home?" "Torres drove him home, sick again," Timothy reported. "He could barely stand during class." Diana's satisfaction was audible. "Perfect. I've added extra doses to his evening tea. A few more days should do it. The insurance company won't question a former pharmaceutical researcher succumbing to stress and depression after his career collapse." Torres ended the recording and immediately dialed Detective Jessica Ramirez's private number. "Get a medical team to Robert Sullivan's house. Now! And bring a warrant." His whispered words carried urgent authority. The next hour exploded into controlled chaos. Police cars arrived silently, their lights off to maintain surprise. Medical technicians drew blood samples from Rob, while Detective Ramirez coordinated the arrest team. Diana's scream of outrage when officers burst and echoed through the house. "This is ridiculous. I'm his wife." "A wife who's been slowly poisoning her husband," Ramirez stated coldly, snapping handcuffs around Diana's wrists. "We have recorded confessions and evidence of conspiracy to commit murder." James attempted to flee through the back door, but found himself face-to-face with Torres's military-trained bulk. The takedown was swift and efficient. Timothy stood frozen in the living room, his teenage bravado crumbling as reality crashed down. "Dad?" His voice cracked, suddenly sounding young and scared. "Dad, I didn't... They said you were dangerous." Rob surveyed the scene from the stairs, supported by medical personnel. His voice, when it came, was steel wrapped in ice. "I am dangerous, Timothy, to those who betray me." He turned away from his son's pleading face, focusing on Detective Ramirez. "You'll find evidence of the poison in my system, likely thallium based on the symptoms. Check Diana's art supplies and James's pharmaceutical samples." The investigation moved quickly. Blood tests confirmed thallium poisoning, carefully administered over months. Diana's offshore accounts were frozen, their contents revealing the extent of her financial betrayal. James's attempt to flee led to the discovery of a packed bag containing false passports and additional poison samples. But the worst betrayal came during the investigation's third day. Detective Ramirez arrived with results from the forensic team's thorough analysis. "Mr. Sullivan," she began carefully, "standard protocol included DNA testing of all family members involved in attempted murder cases." She paused, her experienced eyes gentle but direct. "The results indicate that Timothy is not your biological son. DNA comparison shows James Sullivan is his father. Rob's face remained impassive, though something dark and dangerous flashed in his eyes. 14 years of memories crystallized into a new pattern, revealing the depth of Diana's deception. His brother hadn't just tried to steal his wife and poison his body. He'd stolen his fatherhood before Timothy was even born. The perfect life Rob Sullivan had built crumbled under the weight of ultimate betrayal. His wife, his brother, and the boy he'd raised as his son had conspired to murder him. But as he watched Diana being led away to prison transport and James being taken in restraints to a separate vehicle, Rob Sullivan stood straight-backed and resolute. The foundation of trust was destroyed, but from its ashes would rise something far more potent. Revenge served cold, calculated, and without mercy. Those who had mistaken his principles for weakness would learn that Robert Sullivan's moral compass pointed not just toward justice, but toward retribution. Chapter 4: Shattered Pieces. The hospital room buzzed with quiet activity as Rob Sullivan sat upright in bed, his face impassive while doctors discussed his recovery from thallium poisoning. His physical strength was returning, but the betrayal had transformed him into something harder, colder. "Mr. Sullivan, your students have organized quite the fundraiser," Nurse Chin reported, adjusting his four. The Andrews family opened their pharmacy for a community event. Rob's response was cut short by Bethany Andrews bursting into the room, her father close behind. "Mr. Sullivan, look what we've done." She thrust a tablet toward him, displaying the fundraiser's growing total. "Dad let us use the pharmacy, and we've got the whole school involved." Thomas Andrews studied his daughter's favorite teacher with professional interest. "That poison would have killed most men. You're either incredibly strong or incredibly stubborn." "Both," Rob replied, his voice carrying no trace of weakness. Diana underestimated that. The fundraiser achieved more than financial support. It forced Diana's hand, revealing the extent of her theft when her lawyers attempted to block access to the joint accounts. "She's emptied everything," Rob's attorney confirmed, spreading bank statements across the hospital tray. "But she made mistakes. The transfers leave a clear trail to offshore accounts." Rob's expression didn't change. "Good. She always did underestimate my attention to detail." At the Pierce residence, Timothy struggled to process his new reality. His maternal grandparents, Richard and Eleanor Pierce, watched their grandson with growing concern. "He's not eating," Eleanor whispered to her husband. The psychological trauma of discovering his mother's true nature. Richard Pierce, his judge's demeanor tempered by grandfatherly concern, approached Timothy's room. "May I come in?" Timothy sat surrounded by gaming equipment, James's gifts. "They told me Rob was dangerous," he mumbled. "Mom and James, they said he was unstable after leaving Meridian, that we needed protection." Eleanor, a retired psychologist, recognized the signs of manipulation. "They groomed you, Timothy. Used your trust against you. Against Rob. He raised me." Timothy's voice cracked. "For 14 years, he was my father, and I helped them try to kill him." Richard's judicial experience proved unexpectedly valuable. "The manipulation you endured will factor into any legal proceedings. But Timothy, you need to understand, Rob Sullivan isn't the man your mother and James portrayed." "No," Timothy agreed, staring at his gaming console. "He's much more dangerous than they thought." The case attracted unexpected attention. Detective Sophia Reeves arrived from another jurisdiction, her interest more than professional. "5 years ago, my brother died suddenly," she told Detective Ramirez. "Healthy man in his 40s, married, good life insurance." His wife moved in with her supportive friend James Sullivan 3 months later. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Coincidence? 3 similar cases across different states. Wealthy men, sudden deaths, grieving wives comforted by James Sullivan. But we could never prove anything. Until now. Rob received this information from his hospital bed with cold calculation. "You're saying my brother has a pattern?" "He's perfected it," Reeves confirmed. "But he got sloppy with you." "Maybe because it was personal." "Everything's personal now," Rob replied, his voice carrying a promise of retribution that made even the seasoned detective pause. The support network around Rob grew stronger as his enemies' facades crumbled. His students visited daily, their presence a reminder of the life he'd chosen over corporate corruption. The periodic table test is next week, Bethany announced during one visit. We've been studying extra hard. Mrs. Johnson is a good substitute, but she's not you. Rob's rare smile held no warmth. Life's best lessons aren't in textbooks, Bethany. Remember that. Catherine Reynolds finally broke her silence, guilt driving her to Rob's hospital room. I saw signs, she admitted. Diana and James? I should have spoken up sooner. Yes, Rob agreed, his tone making her flinch. You should have. She was my best friend, Catherine defended weakly. And I was her husband. Friendship didn't stop her from trying to kill me. Remember that before choosing loyalty over truth again. The hospital stay gave Rob time to plan. Each visitor, each piece of information, became another weapon in his arsenal. The man who emerged from treatment bore little resemblance to the principal teacher who entered. Diana's attempts to contact him through lawyers met stone walls. My client has no interest in reconciliation, Rob's attorney informed her legal team. He does, however, have extensive evidence of attempted murder and financial fraud. The fundraiser's success highlighted Diana's theft. Parents who'd supported her art program discovered their investments gone, transferred through the same offshore accounts that held Rob's stolen savings. She told us the program would fund scholarships, one angry parent told reporters. Our children's college funds gone? Timothy watched news coverage from his grandparents' home, each revelation deepening his understanding of the manipulation he'd endured. I wanted to believe them, he confessed to Eleanor during a therapy session. Mom made Rob seem so controlling, so dangerous. And James, he gave me everything Rob said I couldn't have. Material gifts often mask emotional manipulation, Eleanor explained. They used your teenage desire for freedom against you. Richard added his legal perspective. The evidence suggests long-term planning. They didn't just poison Rob's body. They poisoned his relationships first. As Rob's strength returned, his resolve hardened. The man who'd left Meridian Pharmaceuticals over moral principles now focused those same principles on destruction. Your recovery is remarkable, Dr. Chen commented during a final checkup. The work isn't finished, Rob replied, his voice carrying the cold certainty of a man who'd transformed betrayal into purpose. The first chapter of Fall revealed the depth of deception and the strength of unexpected allies. But for Rob Sullivan, physical recovery was merely the beginning. The real battle, the complete destruction of those who'd betrayed him, was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Hidden Truth. Detective Michael Torres's investigation peeled back layers of deception like dead skin, revealing rot beneath. His military background served him well as he connected seemingly unrelated deaths across state lines. 3 women, all married to wealthy men who died unexpectedly, Torres briefed Rob in his hospital room. Each death followed by the grieving widow finding comfort with James Sullivan. Each case officially closed as natural causes. And now we have proof of his methods. Rob's voice carried deadly focus. The poison in my system matches? Preliminary tests suggest similar compounds. We're exhuming bodies for confirmation. Patricia Walsh arrived at the police station unannounced, her hands shaking but her resolve firm. I was James Sullivan's assistant, she told Detective Ramirez. And my sister was one of his victims. Her testimony opened new avenues of investigation. He called them investment opportunities, Patricia revealed. Find wealthy men with substantial life insurance. Cultivate their wives' dissatisfaction. Offer freedom through carefully planned widowhood. The manipulation of Timothy proved deeper than anyone imagined. David Morrison, the private tutor James had hired, broke under questioning. It was subtle, Morrison admitted. Comments about Mr. Sullivan's rigid morality during chemistry lessons. Suggestions that his career change showed mental instability. Building Timothy's resentment while appearing to help him academically. Rob received this information with characteristic stillness. You turned my son against me. James paid well, Morrison defended weakly. I had gambling debts. Like my brother, Rob's voice could have frozen flame. Another weak man James manipulated with money. But you helped poison a child's mind against his father. Morrison's subsequent cooperation stemmed more from fear than remorse. His detailed records of James's instructions revealed calculated psychological manipulation. The goal was to isolate Rob completely, Detective Ramirez explained to the prosecution team. Diana undermined him at home, James corrupted his son, and Morrison reinforced their narrative during tutoring. The art program's true purpose unraveled next. Financial investigators discovered Diana's role in James's larger criminal enterprise. She laundered his illegal pharmaceutical sales through fake art purchases, Torres explained. Parents thought they were supporting student scholarships. Instead, their money funded James's drug trade and Diana's escape plan. Rob's response was characteristically measured. My wife wasn't just trying to kill me. She was stealing from children. The investigation revealed James's network of corruption. He'd used his pharmaceutical sales position to acquire restricted substances, selling them illegally through a chain of carefully placed intermediaries. The art program provided perfect cover, Patricia Walsh explained. High-priced paintings justified large cash transfers. Diana coordinated with buyers, most of them parents at her school. They trusted her, Catherine Reynolds added, her voice bitter with realization. We all did. Rob's students' parents discovered their unwitting involvement in the scheme. Mrs. Sullivan approached us about investing in the art program, Thomas Andrews recalled during a police interview. She said our pharmacy could be a corporate sponsor. The paperwork seemed legitimate. Nothing about Diana is legitimate, Rob stated when informed. She built her entire life on lies. Morrison's testimony revealed James's ultimate plan. They were going to frame Rob for drug possession after his death, he explained. Plant evidence suggesting he'd stolen pharmaceuticals, started dealing when his teaching salary couldn't maintain their lifestyle. The perfect story, Torres noted grimly. Respected teacher turns to crime, dies from his own product. Diana gets sympathy and insurance money. The investigation uncovered more of James's victims. Patricia Walsh's sister wasn't his first target, but her death had special significance. She discovered something, Patricia revealed. Notes about his other victims. He couldn't risk exposure, so he accelerated his usual timeline. Rob absorbed each revelation with growing coldness. The principle-driven man who'd left Meridian transformed into something harder, focused solely on destruction. Diana's art program collapsed as parents demanded financial investigations. The school board discovered years of falsified records and misappropriated funds. She used our trust, one board member stated during an emergency meeting. Used our children's futures to fund her escape plan. Timothy watched his mother's carefully constructed world crumble from his grandparents' home. Each news report, each revealed deception, stripped away another layer of denial. I helped them, he confessed during therapy with Eleanor. Helped them try to kill the only real father I've ever had. They groomed you from birth, Eleanor reminded him. James wasn't just your uncle visiting. He was orchestrating your entire relationship with Rob. Richard Pierce's judicial experience provided valuable insight. This level of manipulation, it's orchestrated over years. They didn't just want Rob's death. They wanted to destroy his reputation, his legacy. The school nurse's meticulous records proved crucial. Margaret Wilson's documented timeline of Rob's symptoms matched perfectly with Diana's increased presence at school events. She used the art program meetings to coordinate with James, Margaret realized. All those times I saw them together. They were planning Rob's murder. Rob received each new revelation with calculated interest, building his own case for retribution. The man who'd once left a lucrative career over ethical concerns now focused those same principles on destruction. You're not just gathering evidence, Torres observed. You're gathering ammunition. They try to destroy everything I built, Rob replied. Now they'll learn what real destruction looks like. The hidden truth revealed not just murder attempts and financial fraud, but a years-long conspiracy to isolate and destroy Rob Sullivan. They'd underestimated him, mistaking moral principles for weakness. That mistake would prove fatal to their carefully constructed plans. Chapter 6: Gathering Forces. Rob's revenge gained unexpected momentum as allies emerged from his past and present. Former colleagues from Meridian Pharmaceuticals, remembering his stand against corporate corruption, provided damning evidence of James's illegal activities. Your brother's sales numbers always seemed impossible, Dr. Marcus Chin explained, spreading documentation across Rob's kitchen table. Now we know why. He wasn't just selling our products. He was distributing restricted substances through a shadow network. Rob studied the papers with cold focus. Show me everything. Marcus had compiled years of suspicious orders and irregular shipments. James used his position to access controlled substances. Doctors who never ordered them, clinics that didn't exist. The numbers didn't add up. They do now, Rob replied, his voice carrying deadly certainty. Margaret Wilson's detailed health records created an ironclad timeline of the poisoning. Her meticulous nature proved invaluable to the prosecution. I documented everything, she told Detective Ramirez. Each visit, each symptom, even casual observations of Diana and James's interactions during school events. 30 years of nursing taught me to trust my instincts. The investigation gained another dimension when Timothy discovered Diana's secret diary in his old room at his grandparents' house. She wrote everything down, he told Detective Torres, pushing the notebook across the table. The poison plan, the offshore accounts, and her plans for James. The diary revealed Diana's ultimate betrayal. She planned to eliminate James once Rob's insurance money cleared. Can't risk loose ends, she'd written. James's gambling debts make him vulnerable. Once the money's secure, an overdose will look natural. His criminal connections provide the perfect cover story. Rob received this information without surprise. Diana never could maintain loyalty. Patricia Walsh's testimony proved explosive. She provided recordings of Diana and James planning to frame Rob for drug possession after his death. They needed to discredit any post-mortem investigation, Patricia explained. Plant evidence suggesting Rob stole pharmaceuticals to maintain their lifestyle after leaving Meridian. The perfect cover story, Torres noted. Respected teacher turns desperate, dies from his own product. They planned everything. Timothy's discovery shattered his remaining illusions about his mother. The diary detailed years of manipulation, including plans to eliminate him if he ever learned the truth. The boy's too soft, Diana had written. Like Robert, if he discovers the truth, he'll crack. Can't risk that after everything's done. Rob's reaction to learning his wife had planned to kill their son, regardless of biological parentage, was characteristically contained but glacially cold. They planned to destroy everything, he stated, his voice carrying promise rather than threat. Now they'll learn what true destruction looks like. The evidence mounted as more allies joined Rob's cause. Catherine Reynolds, overcoming her guilt, provided recorded conversations between Diana and James. I kept them, she admitted to Rob. Insurance, I told myself. But really, I was too cowardly to act. Cowardice has consequences, Rob replied, his tone making her flinch. Remember that. The recordings revealed detailed murder plans and contingencies. Diana and James had orchestrated elaborate scenarios to explain Rob's death and secure the insurance payout. What about the boy? James had asked in one recording. Timothy's useful now. Diana's voice was coldly practical. But if he becomes a problem later? Accidents happen. Detective Sophia Reeves connected more victims to James's pattern. 3 other families destroyed, she reported. Always the same method: befriend the wife, eliminate the husband, secure the insurance money. But he got sloppy with me, Rob observed. Made it personal. Family often does, Reeves agreed. His biggest mistake was targeting someone who understood both chemistry and corruption. The prosecution's case strengthened daily. Financial investigators traced Diana's art program fraud, documenting years of money laundering and theft. She stole from children's futures, Thomas Andrews said during a witness interview. Used our trust in the school system to fund her escape plan. Rob's former Meridian colleagues proved particularly valuable. Their evidence exposed James's pharmaceutical theft ring, connecting him to multiple deaths. We always suspected inventory discrepancies, Dr. Chen explained. But James's sales numbers were too good to question. Until now. The forces gathering against Diana and James grew stronger as more victims' families came forward. Patricia Walsh's testimony resonated with others who'd lost loved ones to James's schemes. My sister wasn't his first victim, she told the prosecution team. But she might have been his last if Rob hadn't survived. Timothy's participation in building the case against his mother and biological father marked his own path toward redemption. "I need to make this right," he told his grandparents. "I helped them nearly kill an innocent man, the only real father I've ever had." Richard Pierce's legal expertise helped shape the prosecution strategy. "This isn't just attempted murder," he explained. "It's conspiracy, fraud, child endangerment. They didn't just try to kill Rob. They tried to destroy everything he built." Eleanor's psychological insight proved equally valuable. The level of manipulation they employed, it's pathological. They didn't just poison Rob's body. They poisoned his relationships first. As evidence mounted and allies gathered, Rob Sullivan's revenge took shape with the same precision he'd once applied to pharmaceutical research. The man who'd left Meridian Pharmaceuticals over ethical concerns now turned those same principles toward devastating retribution. "You've built quite a coalition," Detective Torres observed, watching another witness leave Rob's hospital room. "People respect truth," Rob replied. "Diana and James built their lives on lies. Now those lies will destroy them." Margaret Wilson's medical records provided the foundation. Combined with Bethany Andrews' detailed journal entries, they created an undeniable timeline of the poisoning attempt. "The symptoms progressed exactly as they planned," Margaret explained during a prosecution briefing. "But they didn't count on documentation. Years of nursing taught me to record everything." Patricia Walsh's testimony revealed more layers of deception. She provided emails showing Diana and James planning to frame Rob for drug theft. "They planned to plant evidence in his classroom," Patricia explained. "Make it look like he'd been stealing pharmaceuticals to maintain their lifestyle after leaving Meridian. The perfect explanation for his death." Rob studied the emails without expression. They thought of everything, except survival. The investigation uncovered more victims of James's schemes. 3 other families destroyed, 3 other wives manipulated into murdering their husbands. "Always the same pattern," Detective Reeves reported. "Befriend the wife, orchestrate the husband's death, secure the insurance money." "But you were different, Rob. You were family. Family dies first," Rob responded, his voice carrying Arctic cold. Timothy's discovery of Diana's diary proved crucial. The detailed accounts of manipulation, murder plans, and intended betrayals shocked even seasoned investigators. "She wrote about killing James," Timothy told his grandparents, his voice shaking. "Once she had the insurance money, she planned to stage his overdose. Make it look like his gambling debts caught up with him." Eleanor held her grandson as he processed this final betrayal. "Your mother's capacity for deception runs deep, Timothy. She didn't just lie to others, she lied to herself." Richard Pierce reviewed the diary's contents with his judicial experience. "This isn't just evidence of attempted murder. It's proof of long-term conspiracy, fraud, and child endangerment. They didn't just try to kill Rob. They tried to erase him completely." The forces gathered against Diana and James grew stronger each day. Rob's former colleagues provided evidence of James's pharmaceutical theft ring. Catherine Reynolds surrendered recordings of Diana's plotting. Margaret Wilson's medical records created an unbreakable timeline. "You've built an airtight case," Detective Torres told Rob. "They won't escape justice." Rob's response carried the weight of promised retribution. "Justice is just the beginning. They try to destroy everything I built. Now they'll watch as I destroy them." The prosecution team worked tirelessly, building connections between seemingly unrelated deaths. James's pattern emerged clearly: wealthy men, grieving wives, suspicious deaths, and insurance payouts. "He got sloppy with you," Detective Reeves observed. "Made it personal." "Everything's personal now," Rob agreed, his voice promising consequences beyond legal justice. Timothy's participation in building the case marked his own path toward redemption. His testimony about James and Diana's manipulation would prove devastating. "I need to tell the truth," he insisted to his grandparents. "About everything. The gifts, the lies, how they turned me against Rob." Eleanor supported her grandson's decision while helping him process his guilt. "They groomed you from birth, Timothy. Used your trust against you." Richard added his legal perspective. "Your testimony will be crucial. It shows the depth of their manipulation, the calculated destruction of family bonds. As Act 2 drew to a close, the forces gathered against Diana, and James stood ready. Rob Sullivan had transformed betrayal into strength, building a coalition dedicated to destruction. The man who'd once left a lucrative career over ethical concerns now focused those same principles on devastating revenge. The stage was set for final retribution. Diana and James, secure in their prison cells, had no idea of the storm gathering around them. They tried to destroy Robert Sullivan. Instead, they created something far more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Chapter 7. The Perfect Plan. Rob Sullivan stood in the forensics lab, his presence commanding attention as he examined chemical analysis results. His expertise in pharmaceutical research had become a weapon, one he wielded with precise calculation. These trace elements, he pointed to the data, they're unique to a specific manufacturing process. One James had access to through his sales position. Detective Ramirez watched him work, noting how his scientific knowledge transformed into a tool for revenge. You're saying we can connect this to other victims? Not just connect, prove it conclusively. Rob's voice carried cold satisfaction. James always thought he was the smarter brother. Now his arrogance will destroy him. The exhumation of previous victims revealed a pattern only someone with Rob's background could identify. Each body contained traces of the same distinctive compound that had nearly killed him. The poison's molecular structure is unique, Rob explained to the prosecution team. It metabolizes slowly, mimicking natural organ failure. But it leaves markers, if you know where to look. Dr. Marcus Chun, Rob's former colleague from Meridian, contributed his own expertise. We've analyzed samples from 3 previous victims. The chemical signature matches perfectly. The sting operation targeting James's drug network came together. Rob's connections in the pharmaceutical industry proved invaluable. Your brother's been selling restricted substances through a sophisticated distribution chain, Detective Torres outlined. We'll need insider knowledge to crack it. Rob's response was immediate. I'll give you everything you need. James built his empire on stolen pharmaceuticals. Now that knowledge will bring him down. The operation involved multiple agencies, with Rob's expertise guiding their approach. His understanding of pharmaceutical protocols exposed vulnerabilities in James's network. He's using legitimate shipping manifests to hide illegal substances, Rob demonstrated. But there's a pattern to his documentation. The same one he used at Meridian. The evidence mounted as Rob dismantled his brother's operation. Each discovery added federal charges to James's growing list of crimes. You're destroying everything he built, Detective Reeves observed. He tried to destroy my life, Rob replied. Now he'll watch as I dismantle his world, piece by piece. Catherine Reynolds finally broke her silence completely, providing damning evidence of Diana and James's ultimate betrayal. I recorded their conversations, she told Rob, pushing an USB drive across the table, including their plans for Timothy. The recordings revealed the depths of their depravity. Diana and James had planned to eliminate Timothy if he ever discovered the truth about their relationship or Rob's murder. The boy's too soft. Diana's voice played clearly. If he learns the truth, he'll break. We can't risk that once everything's done. Accidents happen. James agreed on the recording. Grieving mother loses troubled son after father's death. It's almost poetic. Rob's reaction to hearing their plans to murder Timothy was glacial. They planned to kill my son. Technically, James's son, Catherine corrected, then flinched at Rob's expression. I raised him. Rob's voice could have frozen flame. Biology doesn't make a father. Betrayal doesn't erase 14 years. The evidence Catherine provided destroyed Diana's last chance at maternal rights. The recordings proved she'd not only conspired to murder her husband, but had also planned her son's death. This goes beyond attempted murder, the prosecutor explained. These recordings prove premeditation, conspiracy, and intent to commit multiple homicides. Rob's expertise led investigators to more victims. His analysis identified the poison in cold cases spanning years, each death connected to James Sullivan. He perfected his method over time, Rob explained to the forensics team. Each death appeared natural because no one knew what markers to look for. Until now, the investigation expanded to include financial crimes. Rob's understanding of pharmaceutical sales exposed James's entire operation. He didn't just sell illegal drugs, Rob demonstrated. He used Diana's art program to launder the profits. They destroyed families while stealing from children. The prosecution built an airtight case. Rob's scientific knowledge combined with evidence from multiple sources created an insurmountable wall of proof. Your brother never expected you to survive, Detective Torres commented. No, Rob agreed. He thought principles made me weak. Now those same principles will destroy him. The investigation revealed the full scope of James and Diana's planning. They hadn't just attempted murder. They'd orchestrated a complete destruction of Rob's life and legacy. They planned to frame you for drug theft, Detective Ramirez explained. Plant evidence suggesting you stole pharmaceuticals to maintain your lifestyle after leaving Meridian. The perfect story, Rob nodded. Respected teacher turns desperate, dies from his own product. They planned everything, except failure. The case expanded beyond attempted murder as Rob's evidence exposed years of criminal activity. His pharmaceutical background proved devastating to James's defense. Each victim showed the same chemical markers, Rob pointed out to the forensics team. James had access to these substances through his sales position. The signature is unmistakable. The prosecution prepared for trial with Rob's guidance, ensuring no detail was overlooked. His scientific expertise transformed into a weapon of destruction. You're not just seeking justice, Detective Reeves observed. You're orchestrating complete annihilation. They try to destroy everything I built, Rob replied. Now they'll learn what true destruction looks like. The perfect plan took shape, combining scientific evidence with testimony from multiple sources. Rob's approach left no room for legal maneuvering or escape. James and Diana, secure in their separate detention facilities, had no concept of the destruction approaching. They tried to kill Rob Sullivan. Instead, they created an implacable enemy who would systematically destroy everything they'd built. Chapter 8, Justice Served. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Rob Sullivan took the witness stand. His presence commanded attention, his testimony delivered. You're certain about the poison's composition? The prosecutor asked. I spent 15 years in pharmaceutical research, Rob replied. The molecular structure is distinctive. James had access to these compounds through his sales position. The same poison appears in multiple victims over years. The media swarmed the courthouse daily. Rob's students attended in silent support, their presence highlighting the contrast between his chosen path and his would-be murderers. Bethany Andrews, now a senior, organized her classmates. Mr. Sullivan taught us more than chemistry, she told reporters. He showed us that principles matter. Standing up for truth matters. Diana's fellow teachers testified about her manipulation and growing instability. Each witness revealed another layer of deception. She used the art program to steal from students' families, one teacher explained. Parents trusted her with their children's college funds. She took everything. The financial fraud evidence proved devastating. Investigators had traced years of money laundering through Diana's art program. Mrs. Sullivan approached us about investing in student art, Thomas Andrews testified. She used our pharmacy's reputation to legitimize her scheme. The money went straight to offshore accounts. The prosecution presented Diana's complete betrayal. Not just attempted murder and fraud, but the planned destruction of Rob's reputation. The defendants didn't just attempt to kill Robert Sullivan, the prosecutor argued. They planned to destroy his legacy, plant evidence of drug theft, frame him as a desperate man who'd lost his moral compass. James's defense crumbled as Rob's evidence exposed his pharmaceutical theft ring. His sales records revealed years of diverted substances and falsified orders. Each death follows the same pattern, Detective Reeves testified. Wealthy husband, grieving wife, James Sullivan offering comfort. The poison's chemical signature matches each time. The trial revealed Diana's art fraud scheme in detail. Parents learned how their investments had funded murder plans and offshore accounts. She convinced us we were supporting children's education, one parent testified. Instead, she used our money to plan her husband's murder. James's criminal connections turned against him in prison. His gambling debts caught up as former associates learned of his betrayals. Your brother's having a difficult adjustment, Detective Torres informed Rob. His protection disappeared when his assets were frozen. Prison gangs don't appreciate unpaid debts. Rob's response was characteristically cold. He chose his path. Now he'll walk it alone. Diana faced her own consequences in detention. Other inmates learned of her crimes through media coverage. The women's facility has a particular distaste for child endangerment, Detective Ramirez reported. The recordings about Timothy, they've made her stay uncomfortable. The evidence of planned violence against Timothy particularly shocked the jury. Diana's maternal rights faced final destruction. She not only conspired to murder her husband, the prosecutor argued. She planned to kill her own son if he discovered the truth. This level of calculated evil demands maximum punishment. James's attempts at legal maneuvering failed spectacularly. Each motion met Rob's precise evidence and scientific expertise. The defendant claims these deaths were natural, the prosecutor presented. Dr. Sullivan's analysis proves otherwise. The chemical signatures are identical. The evidence is undeniable. The trial's impact spread beyond the courtroom. Rob's story became a warning about betrayal and corruption. The defendants assumed Robert Sullivan's principles made him weak, the prosecutor told the jury. Instead, those principles became the weapon of their destruction. Diana's art fraud scheme unraveled completely. Investigators discovered years of financial manipulation and theft. She stole from children's futures, the prosecutor emphasized. Used a school art program to fund murder and escape plans. The betrayal extends beyond her family to an entire community. James's prison experience deteriorated as his former criminal associates demanded payment. His protected status vanished with his frozen assets. Your brother's learning about real consequences, Detective Torres told Rob. Prison has its own justice system. He's lost all protection. Diana faced isolation in her facility. James's victims' families ensured her reputation preceded her. The inmates know what she did, a guard reported. Plotting to kill her own son. That doesn't go over well. Even in prison, the trial concluded with overwhelming evidence. Rob's scientific expertise had transformed attempted murder into a complete exposition of years of criminal activity. The defendants didn't just attempt one murder, the prosecutor summarized. They've destroyed multiple families over years. Their crimes combine murder, fraud, and the worst betrayal of family bonds. The jury's deliberation was brief. The evidence Rob provided left no room for doubt. Chapter 9, Rebuilding. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, Rob's evidence ensuring complete victory. The judge's decision was unequivocal. Given the severity of Mrs. Pierce Sullivan's crimes, the judge declared, this court grants Mr. Sullivan full ownership of all assets. Mrs. Pierce Sullivan's teacher's pension will be placed in trust for Timothy's future mental health care. Rob accepted the decision with characteristic stoicism. His attorney presented the final terms, including a permanent restraining order. Diana cannot contact you for any reason, his lawyer confirmed. All communication must go through legal channels. She lost that right when she chose murder over divorce, Rob replied, his voice devoid of emotion. The separation from Timothy proved more complex. Rob's initial response to the boy's betrayal was absolute. I won't see him, Rob informed Richard and Eleanor Pierce. 14 years meant nothing to him. He chose his side. Eleanor, drawing on her psychology background, attempted to explain. They groomed him from birth, Rob. The manipulation was systematic. He participated in my attempted murder, Rob's voice cut like steel. Understanding why doesn't change what he did. Timothy struggled with the consequences of his actions. His grandparents watched him battle depression and guilt. I believed everything they told me, Timothy confessed during therapy. Mom and James made Rob seem dangerous. Said he'd hurt us if he discovered the truth. Eleanor guided her grandson through the painful realizations. They used your trust against you. Against everyone. Richard's legal experience provided perspective. The manipulation was calculated. They didn't just poison Rob's body. They poisoned his relationships first. Diana's attempts at contact met Rob's immovable resolve. Her lawyers presented letters claiming reformation and regret. "Your client tried to kill me," Rob responded through his attorney. "She planned to kill her own son. There's no coming back from that." The prison system proved equally unforgiving. Diana's art therapy privileges ended after she attempted to send coded messages to James. She hid coordinates in her paintings, the prison warden explained, trying to maintain contact with James in the men's facility. James attempted to leverage the paternity revelation for a reduced sentence. His strategy backfired spectacularly. "My client was protecting his biological son," James's lawyer argued in court. "Timothy's testimony destroyed that defense. He manipulated me into helping murder the only real father I've ever had. Biology doesn't make a father. Love and trust do." He destroyed both. The judge added 5 years to James's sentence for child endangerment. Rob watched the proceedings with cold satisfaction. Years passed. Timothy's 18th birthday brought a lengthy letter to Rob. "I understand now," Timothy wrote. "They groomed me from the beginning, made me believe their lies about you. I know sorry isn't enough, but I need you to know the truth." Rob read the letter multiple times, his expression unchanging. The boy's words couldn't erase the betrayal, but they offered something new: honesty. Their relationship rebuilt slowly, differently. Not father and son, but two people linked by shared trauma and truth. "I'm keeping the Sullivan name," Timothy informed Rob during a carefully neutral meeting. "Not for James, for the man who actually raised me." Rob's response was measured. Names are choices. Like truth, like loyalty. The years brought changes. Rob found unexpected happiness with Melissa Martinez, a prosecutor who understood both justice and redemption. "You're different with Angela," Melissa observed, watching Rob with her daughter. "Protective, but not controlling. You learned from the betrayal." "Trust is earned," Rob replied. "She never has to earn love." The foundation Rob established helped children of incarcerated parents, turning personal tragedy into purpose. "These kids need to understand it's not their fault," Rob explained to the board. "Parents' choices don't define their children's worth." Diana and James watched from prison as Rob rebuilt his life. Their appeals met consistent denial. The paternity revelation strengthens the case, the appeals judge ruled. It proves premeditation and long-term deception. Timothy graduated with honors, his research focusing on poison detection methods. His work earned recognition in scientific circles. "My research might help prevent what happened to Rob," Timothy explained at a conference. "Some good has to come from this." Rob attended the conference, maintaining professional distance. Their interaction was cordial, controlled, a new foundation built on honesty rather than assumed bonds. Diana's art therapy privileges never returned. Her attempts to contact Rob through lawyers continued to fail. "Your client's reformation claims lack credibility," Rob's attorney responded. "Actions have permanent consequences." James's prison time grew harder as his protection eroded. Former associates ensured his reputation brought consequences. "Karma," Detective Torres commented to Rob. "Your brother's past caught up with him." Rob's response was characteristic. Justice comes in many forms. The story of betrayal transformed into one of resilience. Rob Sullivan proved that principles weren't weakness. They were weapons when wielded. Diana and James watched from their cells as Rob built a new life. Their futures held only regret and consequence while he found strength in truth. Timothy's research honored the lessons learned. Though holiday dinners and father-son moments were past, he and Rob found a different peace, one built on honesty and shared survival. Rob Sullivan's revenge wasn't just destruction. It was rebuilding something stronger from betrayal's ashes. While Diana and James faced perpetual imprisonment, he proved that family transcended blood, rooted instead in choice, loyalty, and uncompromising truth. Epilogue: 10 years later. Dr. Robert Sullivan stood at the podium of the National Science Foundation's annual conference, his commanding presence unchanged by the decade since his near-death experience. The audience sat riveted as he discussed the Sullivan Foundation's latest breakthrough in toxicology detection. Our new screening protocol identifies previously undetectable poisons in cold cases, Rob explained, his voice carrying the same steel that had once confronted betrayal. In the past year alone, we've helped solve 15 cold cases across 3 continents. In the front row, Dr. Timothy Pierce Sullivan watched his former father present. At 24, Timothy had earned his own doctorate in forensic toxicology, his research building on the foundation of that painful history. After the presentation, Timothy approached Rob in the conference hall. Their interaction held the careful respect of 2 professionals who shared complicated history. The new detection method, Timothy began, it's based on the compound they used on you, isn't it? Rob nodded once. James's poison provided the template. I turned his weapon into a tool for justice. Their relationship had evolved over the years. Not father and son, but colleagues united by shared purpose. Timothy had kept the Sullivan name professionally, though he'd added his mother's maiden name after extensive therapy helped him process his identity. Mom tried contacting me again. Timothy mentioned, his tone neutral. Another letter through her lawyers. Diana hasn't changed, Rob replied coldly. 10 years in prison just taught her new manipulation tactics. Diana Pierce Sullivan remained in the California Women's Correctional Facility, her attempts at early release consistently denied. Her art therapy privileges had never been restored after her coded message attempt. Instead, she'd turned to writing, sending lengthy letters of supposed reformation to both Rob and Timothy. Your mother's latest appeal was denied, Richard Pierce informed his grandson over dinner that evening. The former judge had remained a steady presence in Timothy's life. The parole board wasn't impressed by her claims of enlightenment. Eleanor Pierce, still sharp in her role as family matriarch, added her psychological insight. Diana's letters show the same patterns of manipulation. She's incapable of genuine remorse. James Sullivan's fate had proven even harsher. His criminal connections had ensured his time in maximum security was particularly unpleasant. 3 years ago, he'd been found unconscious in his cell, the victim of an apparent drug overdose. He survived, but the incident left him partially paralyzed. Karma, Detective Michael Torres, now retired, commented when he heard the news. His own poison methods turned against him. The Sullivan Foundation had grown into a powerful force for justice and rehabilitation. Rob's marriage to Melissa Martinez, the prosecutor who'd helped convict Diana and James, added legal expertise to their mission. Their daughter Angela, now 15, showed her mother's passion for justice and her stepfather's uncompromising principles. Dad's teaching me chemistry, Angela told her friends proudly. He says understanding science helps protect us from people who'd use it to harm others. Bethany Andrews, Rob's former student who documented his poisoning symptoms, had become the Foundation's lead research scientist. Her detailed nature and loyalty made her invaluable. Those journal entries I kept about Mr. Sullivan's symptoms became the basis for our detection protocols, she explained to new staff. Documentation saves lives. Catherine Reynolds had transformed her guilt into purpose. After retiring from teaching, she volunteered with the Foundation's outreach program, helping families affected by betrayal and crime. I stayed silent once, she told support groups. That silence nearly cost a man his life. Now I teach others to speak up. Margaret Wilson's medical records had become a template for the Foundation's evidence collection protocols. Though retired, she consulted on cases where subtle poisoning was suspected. Rob Sullivan taught me that careful observation isn't paranoia, she often said. It's protection. Detective Sophia Reeves had used the Sullivan case to reopen dozens of suspicious deaths. Her brother's murderer had finally faced justice, thanks to Rob's detection methods. The Sullivan protocols changed everything, she told her department. Killers who thought they were perfect suddenly left traceable evidence. Patricia Walsh continued working with the Foundation, her sister's death giving purpose to her mission. She coordinated with victims' families, helping them navigate the legal system. James Sullivan destroyed my family, she would say. Rob Sullivan helped me rebuild purpose from those ashes. The Andrews Family Pharmacy had become a key partner in the Foundation's research. Thomas Andrews worked closely with Rob to develop new testing methods. My daughter saw what others missed, he said proudly. Now we help others see the truth before it's too late. David Morrison, the tutor who'd helped manipulate Timothy, had served 5 years for his role in the conspiracy. After release, he'd written a detailed account of psychological manipulation techniques, which the Foundation used in their prevention programs. I helped destroy a family bond, Morrison admitted in his book. Understanding how I did it helps others prevent the same tragedy. Rob's former Meridian colleagues had also joined his mission. Dr. Marcus Chun led their pharmaceutical research division, developing new methods to track diverted medications. Rob's principles once cost him his career, Dr. Chun reflected. Now those same principles are saving lives. The Foundation's headquarters occupied the renovated building where Diana's art program had once laundered money. Rob had transformed it into a center for justice and healing. We turned their crimes into salvation, he told visitors. Each person they hurt becomes motivation to help others. Timothy's research focused on early detection of long-term poisoning. His work had already saved dozens of potential victims. I couldn't prevent what happened to Rob, he explained at conferences, but I can prevent it happening to others. The Foundation's legal team, led by Melissa, specialized in cases involving family betrayal and financial fraud. They offered pro bono services to victims who couldn't afford representation. Rob taught me that justice needs both science and law, Melissa said. Together, we make sure no one escapes consequences. Angela Martinez Sullivan showed promise in both fields. She interned at the Foundation during summers, learning both the scientific and legal aspects of their work. My stepdad teaches me that strength comes from principles, she told a youth group, not from hurting others. Detective Jessica Ramirez maintained contact with the Foundation, consulting on cases where family betrayal turned deadly. The Sullivan case changed how we investigate suspicious deaths, she explained to New Detectives. Never assume family loyalty prevents murder. The Foundation's work had attracted international attention. Rob's detection methods became standard protocol in toxicology labs worldwide. Each solved case brings more victims forward, Rob noted during board meetings. Diana and James showed me how killers hide. Now I teach others to find them. Diana's art therapy paintings attempted coded messages to James, hung in the Foundation's entrance. A reminder of how betrayal could hide behind beauty. Mom tried to make poison look like love, Timothy observed once. Rob taught me that real love demands truth. James's pharmaceutical sales records became training materials for drug enforcement agencies. His methods of diverting restricted substances now helped catch others using similar tactics. Your brother thought he was clever, Detective Torres told Rob. You turned his cleverness into a trap for others like him. The Pierce grandparents had transformed their home into a safe haven for families rebuilding after betrayal. Richard's legal experience and Eleanor's psychological training proved invaluable. We couldn't prevent Diana's crimes, Eleanor said, but we can help others heal from similar wounds. Rob's principles, once mocked by Diana and James as weakness, had built an empire of justice. The man who'd left Meridian Pharmaceuticals over ethical concerns now led an international force for truth. They thought killing me would free them, Rob told a journalist. Instead, their failure created something much more powerful, a way to ensure no other family suffers in silence. Timothy's relationship with Rob would never return to its former closeness. But they built something new, professional respect and shared purpose. Biology made James my father, Timothy said in his dissertation acknowledgments. But Rob Sullivan taught me that true fatherhood means choosing right over easy. Diana's prison writings revealed her inability to change. Each appeal letter showed the same manipulation tactics that had once poisoned her family. Mrs. Pierce Sullivan demonstrates consistent sociopathic patterns, the parole board noted. Her reformation claims lacked genuine insight or remorse. James's partial paralysis left him dependent on prison medical care. His former criminal associates ensured he received minimal sympathy. Poetic justice, Rob observed when informed. The man who poisoned others now can't trust his own food or medicine. The Foundation's success marked its own form of revenge. Each life saved, each killer caught, Each family protected struck back at those who tried to destroy Rob Sullivan. They wanted to erase me, Rob told his board. Instead, they created a legacy that saves others from their fate. The decade had transformed betrayal into strength, turning personal tragedy into global protection. Rob Sullivan's story became more than revenge. It became a blueprint for turning evil into good. Diana and James watched from their prison cells as their attempted murder victim built an empire of justice. Their weapons became his tools, their methods his evidence, their betrayal his motivation. The Sullivan Foundation stood as living proof that principles weren't weakness. They were power when wielded with precision and purpose. Rob had transformed personal devastation into universal protection, ensuring that future poisoners would find no sanctuary in family bonds or beautiful lies. 10 years later, Robert Sullivan's revenge wasn't just complete. It was ongoing, saving lives daily while his would-be murderers watched helplessly from behind bars. Their own tactics turned against those who would follow their path. The man who'd chosen teaching over corporate corruption had become a different kind of teacher. One who taught the world that truth was the deadliest weapon against betrayal, and principles the strongest armor against evil. Diana's art therapy paintings hung as warnings. James's sales records became detection tools. Their poison methods transformed into protection protocols. Everything they'd used to destroy had been rebuilt into salvation. The Sullivan legacy wasn't just survival, it was transformation. Of tragedy into triumph, betrayal into protection, and near death into renewed purpose. While Diana and James counted endless prison days, Rob Sullivan's influence grew stronger, proving that the ultimate revenge wasn't just surviving betrayal. It was ensuring no one else would suffer the same fate. His story became legend in law enforcement and medical circles, not just for the dramatic revelation of attempted murder, but for the systematic way he'd turned personal tragedy into universal protection. The principles that Diana and James had mocked as weakness had built an impenetrable fortress of justice. The decade since betrayal had proven one truth above all. Robert Sullivan's revenge wasn't served cold. It was served eternally, protecting countless lives while his would-be murderers watched their own methods become their lasting punishment. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.